Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Pulling Around Show. I'm Chris Wilmuth, and this is Sean King. And today we have the honor to have Miss Mary Kenniston with us, WPBA Hall of Famer. Mary, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Mary. It's an honor. I always get free pool lessons when I do these, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot. And hopefully you can tell us some stuff about you. This is supposed to be about you. I know you have a lot of stories, but don't be afraid to let us know the other sides of you that maybe the pool world doesn't know.
Okay.
So what got you into pool?
It was a total accident. When I was in college, well, let me backtrack. I was an athlete when I was young, and basketball was my main sport. I'm 6 feet tall, so I towered over everybody in those days. I see a lot of taller women today, but not in the old days, or at least not where I live. Let's put it that way. Anyway, I got a basketball scholarship to college. And it was the only college in the United States that offered women basketball or softball scholarships at that time. This is 1971. Anyway, long story short, in my contract, it said I couldn't do any risky activities. I couldn't, like skiing, etc. And it forbid me to go to bars. Well, anyway, so fast forward a little bit, and in my second year, I tore up my knees playing basketball. Actually, I'd torn them up quite a few times, but this was like the last straw. So the doctor said I had a choice. They could either operate or I would have to stop playing. And so I asked them what my odds were with the operations. Now, in those days, they didn't have the laser surgery like they do today. It was, railroad tracks from the middle of your thigh to the middle of your shin. And recovery was brutal. And anyway, I said, well, what are my odds of playing again? He said, 50-50. I said, well, I don't think so. I said, will I still get my scholarship? He said, yes. I said, okay, good. So now that I'm not playing ball anymore, I was free to go to the bars. And my boyfriend at the time always, he would go to the bars, because that's where all the kids went, And anyway, so he was all excited, that I could go to the bar with him now. And so anyway, we go down there. And like I said, I'm not a drinker. But, wanted to go because that's where all the kids hung out. Well, anyway, bored to death. All the girls sat around, talking about the latest fashions or showing each other the newest shade of nail polish. And, and that's not me. And, I've always, hung with the boys anyway. And anyway, there was a pool table in there, bar table. And my boyfriend happened to be was the best player on campus. So he basically had the table all night. And anyway, so I go put my quarter up. I'd never played pool before. And he says, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to play pool. He says, well, do you know how? I says, no. He says, well, you can't. I said, just rack them. I grabbed the rack and I says, let's just play. Well, anyway, I beat him. You're not so smart. But, I had good eye-hand coordination. The pockets were huge. I could, pretty much guess where I had to hit the object ball to make it. Had no clue about position. I would just make the balls. Well, anyway, I ended up holding the table all night. So he was very pissed. But then he came to his senses because they had a tournament every month where the winners, it had to be Scotch doubles, and the winner would get a keg of beer. So now he wants me to play with him. So we did, and we won. And because none of the other girls could make a ball. And so that's what I did in school. And so now when I came home from college, my family had moved from Long Island to North Jersey. I'd get lost back and out of the driveway. I mean, I didn't know anything about North Jersey. Anyway, my mom asked me to go to the store and pick up some milk. So I asked her for directions. She told me. And so on the way there, I saw this billiard room. And it was all plate glass in the front. And I could see all these kids in there playing. I said, oh, maybe after supper, I'll go down there, make some friends. Well, anyway, so after supper, I go in there and I get the balls from the old man at the counter and I get a table. Now, all these tables were 9-footers now. No more, there's not a bar table in the place. And I don't know, there's probably 30 or 40 9-footers, all different colored cloths and pastel cloths. And anyway, so I just started knocking them around. I just threw the balls on the table. The only game I knew was 8-ball. So I would rack them for 8-ball and then I'd play by myself. Anyway, so 2 or 3 nights in a row, I go there. The old man's there. And finally on the 4th night, I said, these people in here are really unfriendly. I said, nobody talks to me or, he says, look around. You see any other girls in here? It never even entered my mind. And he says, you're going to be, I'm off tomorrow night. He says, why don't you come down tomorrow night and I'll introduce you to some of the guys. I said, okay. Well, anyway, the rest is history. And that's how I started playing pool.
Wow. How long did you stay with the boyfriend?
Oh, he, when I left school, I left him too.
And what'd you do next after school?
I got a job as a secretary. I was the executive secretary to the facilities planning manager for automatic data processing, ADP. The headquarters was in North Jersey. So I worked for him for 6 months and then went back to school for another year.
So
okay.
When did you start playing competitively?
Well, the old man, his name was Bob Cerrone. He was a retired national sales manager for a large corporation. And he grew up in Philly. And he came up at the same time as Moscone and Karras and those guys. And of course, when World War II came along, he enlisted along with everybody else and went to war. Was fortunate to come back, got married, got a job, and didn't go to the pool room anymore. Well, anyway, now fast forward years later, his wife has passed away. He moved back to North Jersey because that's where she was from. So she passed away up there. When she passed away, he got a job as the houseman in this particular pool room that I stumbled into. Well, anyway, long story short, we became good friends, and he showed me what he knew about position. And so, within, 2 or 3 weeks, I was beating him. And anyway, so one day I came in and he handed me a cue, a 2-piece cue. He says, here, he says, I got you this cue. And it was a Palmer, 2-piece Palmer. I wish I still had it. Anyway, so I was thrilled, I had a little vinyl case, to put it in. And anyway, so now a month or 2 or 3 later, I walk in and he tells me that he's entered me in this women's tournament. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to play in that. I can't, because I'd seen by now, he had taken me to see Mizrak and Hopkins and Ray Martin and Pete Margot and, the Fuscos. And, because at that time, the tri-state area, the Northeast, was a hotbed for very good players. Right. So I'd seen all these guys. And I knew I was a dope. I could see I didn't play as well as they did. And I just assumed the women, played as well as the men or close. Well, anyway, so I refused. He said, well, I'll tell you what. He says, let's just go down and watch. He said, and then I said, all right. So we went down there. So we, there like 20 minutes. And I looked at Bob. I said, well, I can beat all these girls. And he looked at me. He said, no shit. That's why I entered you. Well, anyway, so that was the next tournament was my first foray into tournament pool, and the rest is history.
Well, we want to hear that rest is history part.
So,
Chris,
what struggles did you face being a female professional that maybe the guys didn't witness?
Okay, well, at that time, now we're talking the early 70s. This was, you guys are too young to know much about this, if anything, but it was the time of women's lib. And women were, knocking down the doors in all aspects of society, whether it was sports or business, etc. Up until that point, I remember in high school they had a job fair and they had a section for the girls, and it was stewardess, nurse, teacher, secretary. Yeah, those were the four options, and then the boys had all the other stuff. So anyway, but now the women are knocking down the doors, and I grew up playing with the boys. It never even entered my mind. I was very good. In fact, I was the best in the neighborhood. I remember being just furious because they wouldn't let me play Little League. The coach wanted me to play, and he went to the powers that be, the Little League powers, and tried to get me to, allow me to play, and they refused. And of course, now, little girls can play Little League. But anyway, I was a pioneer in a lot of things. So I was thrilled. Now, as far as the pool playing went, a lot of the guys did not like women coming around into their dens of iniquity. But then a lot of them were very supportive. So it was a mixed bag. I had a few guys that were very good players show me a few things. But even in those days, the guys didn't want to show you anything, really. The ones that did had other things on their mind.
Right.
It's not like today where there's so much information on the internet and so on and so forth. I also came up at a time when Jean Belucas was the best player. And within 2 years, I was right behind her. I played better position than she did, but she had such a powerful break and she pocketed so well that she always won. I beat her one time in a straight pool tournament. And in fact, I'm the only blemish on her record since she won her straight pool championships. Never beat her playing 9-ball. Like I say, her break and her pocketing was just exceptional. Jean routinely put 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s on me whenever we played. And my break, of course, I had to beat her 1 or 2 games at a time. And she's the only female that ever put any packages on me. And anyway, I lost to her a bazillion times. I have so many seconds with Jean in the tournament, it is what it is. It was what it was.
So she was your nemesis?
Oh, absolutely. And she was, she was the goal that I and the other women aspired to, was to beat Jean, to play as well, if not better than Jean. She was the goal at that time.
what about her? We know a little bit about you, but mostly what I know about you is just the things I see online. What about, let's say, her playing you some bank pool or some one pocket?
No. We did not play bank pool or one pocket.
Okay.
I never even heard of bank pool until I went on the road a few years later. Now, I saw one pocket, but neither me or any of the other women played that.
So that was
We
later.
played straight pool and 9-ball. That's it.
So what was your most memorable tournament win?
Well, I have several. The first one is the one I previously mentioned. It was at the Pennsylvania State Championships in Philadelphia at Mike Fusco's Boulevard Athletic Club. And I drew Jean and I beat her. And like I say, that was the only blemish on her record. And she refused to shake my hand, didn't talk to me again for years. Her father and brother were two of the first ones over there to hug me because they realized, what a, huge deal it was. She didn't like it. But it was what it was. Of course, she ended up winning the tournament. I came in third. And I guess second or third. I don't know. Anyway, she ended up winning the tournament. But that was a huge victory for me at that time. And then the next one for me was when I won my first of 2 world championships.
Where was that held at?
Both of them were held in Vegas, and one was in 1980. The second one was in 1989, and the other milestone or achievement in my life, my pool life, was to win the WPBA Nationals. I did that in 1987. And then, of course, being inducted into the WPBA Hall of Fame many years later.
Wow.
So
okay, when did you begin taking all these pictures? Because, before I asked a few questions about who Mary Kenniston was, I just thought there was this older lady who had all these photos of pool players. And I didn't know that time that you were a Hall of Famer yourself. When did the camera come out of the bag? When did that start?
Okay, well, first of all, 99% of the photos that I post, I did not take myself.
Okay.
If you notice, in my Facebook Walls of Fame, I'm working on album number 90 right now, and I have approximately 200 photos in each one. All of them I have identified to the best of my ability as far as the people in it, the year, or guesstimate of the year, the event. And at the bottom, at the bottom of the caption, it says courtesy of. And then whoever gave me the photos, I enter their name.
Yes.
So I was definitely you're a collector of photos, not a taker of photos.
Pretty much, yeah. But let me backtrack a little bit. In 1988, I opened a pool room in Las Vegas. And it was, in my opinion, it was a very nice place. And according to a lot of people liked it. Let's put it that way. In my travels, I had been in many pool rooms over the years. And, every time I saw something I liked, I'd write it down, hoping that someday I'd have my own pool room. Anyway, long story short, finally got the place open, and the walls were empty. So I was rooming on the tour with Sherry Stout of Pool and Billiard Magazine. So I mentioned it to Sherry, and she says, well, listen, she says, we're having a tournament in Chicago. She says, stay an extra day or two. You stay at my house, and I'll take you to the office, and you can go through my files, the magazine's files, and take whatever photos you want. I said, cool. So my first 300 photos were photos that were on the walls of my pool room. 90% of them came from Sherry. The other 10% either I took or people gave me photos of themselves or photos of other people. So now when I closed the pool room in 2000, I just took the photos off the wall, threw them in a box, and there they sat. And then several years later, a friend of mine passed away. And she was always hounding me, to be her friend on Facebook. Well, I didn't get Facebook. And I would always say, oh, I'm already your friend. She was my best friend. And I didn't get it. Well, anyway, so now she passes away, and, everybody's calling me and telling me. And so anyway, they said, go on Facebook, go to her page. And, and so anyway, I joined Facebook, and I went to her page, and I couldn't see what everybody wrote because I was not her friend. That's when I got it. Anyway, so within 3 or 4 hours, as soon as I signed up for Facebook, all of my friends that were on there from the pool world, were sending me friend requests. And, within an hour or 3, I had, several hundred friends, Facebook friends. Well, anyway, so now I'm, going through Facebook, and I see people posting pictures of their lunch or their kids or their vacation or themselves or whatever. And I guess I got to backtrack again. So right about a week or 2 before I signed up for Facebook and Julie had passed away, I had to go into the extra bedroom to look for something. And so as I was looking for it, I came across these boxes of photos from the pool room. And I hadn't looked at them in years. And so I just sat down on the floor and started going through them. And a couple hours later, my husband comes in and says, there you are. I've been looking all over you. What are you doing? And so I said, oh, remember and he's not a pool player. We all married pool players, all the girls. We divorced them and got ourselves real men. That's a joke. Take it personally. But anyway, so he sat down. Now, he didn't know most of the players, but I had told him stories about a lot of the guys or the girls. And so anyway, so we sat down on the floor looking at pictures for an hour or 2. And well, anyway, so now we're hungry, and so we're putting them all back in the boxes. So now I joined now a week later, I joined Facebook, and I tell him about all these, pictures there. He says, what about all those pool pictures that we were looking at last week? Why don't you pick out half a dozen or 10 of those and post them and see if anybody's got any interest? He says, okay. So I did. I posted 10, and the rest is history. And that's how it started. It all snowballed from there. Sherry ended up sending me all of her photos from the magazines, thousands of them. Other people said, well, I've got some pictures from, the 91 World Championships. You want them? I said, sure. So, a lot of them are amateur photographs. They're blurry. A lot of them are professional photographs, publicity photos. It's just a mix of everything. And anyway, long story short, that's how it all happened. And I'm still scanning and IDing. In fact, I found another batch of Sherry's photos, another 1,300 that she had sent me that I forgot about. And but anyway, so I've posted 90 albums, approximately 200 in each. So that's 18,000 photos so far. I have another 23,000 in my files. I have another 1,000 that I haven't scanned and ID'd yet. So anyway, I got lots of pictures.
I can think of the title for this show. It's going to be Mary Kenniston, World Pool Hall of Famer and Pool Photo Queen. I don't know. But you're winning all the awards in the photos. My news feed wouldn't be as cool without seeing these. I mean, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
to figure out who these people are.
Yeah, and the best thing is that the photos, on Facebook, you can comment on them. And that's, the photos are memory starters. And, a lot of the threads that get started on my photos are great. They're funny, and people start talking about, all kinds of stuff and what happened to them at this tournament. And, that's the best part for me. And that's why I do it. There's nobody else that is really preserving any of the memories. And like I say, I've got, plenty of time. So it's what I do.
Which is what we're trying to do with this show.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Go ahead, Chris.
we were visiting with old Cotton here a while back, and he
Cotton,
said,
my buddy Cotton.
yeah, and he said to ask you about Lori shampoo.
Shampoo.
He said
Yes.
shampoo.
Yes, I know. Well, a lot of the people that called her Shampoo, but her last name was Shampoo, Shampo. Anyway, I knew Lori. We got to be pretty good friends. We both, I was on the road a little bit before she was. And obviously we had heard about each other. The only time we ever played, our state courses tried to match us up. My state course was Bucktooth from California, and her state course were the Detroit people. And Bucktooth and I did not want to go play in Detroit. And anyway, we wanted to play in a neutral place. And so Jerry Titcomb, who had a pool room in Southern Ohio, volunteered her place. And so I said, yeah, okay. She was another good friend and a good player. And the Detroit crew didn't want to play there, so we never played. The only time we played was in tournaments. We played 3 times. Now, by this time, we were, half-ass friends, and so we would bet dinner on our matches. The races to 9 or 7 or 9, depending on the tournament. And she knew that I loved lobster, and I knew that she loved rack of lamb. Well, you would think that we were playing for $1 million, and we played so hard. And I am happy to say that I won 2 and she won 1.
2 lobsters, 1 rack of lamb.
That's right. That's right.
It's always good to have those memories.
I want to know some of the people that inspired you to get so good at pool. You said Jim Belucas. Can you give us some other people that may have pushed you?
Well, I was always a natural athlete. It didn't, pool is the only thing that I ever did in my life that I didn't become very good at within a year or 2. Seriously good. And in those days, I didn't have any coaching, I just watched and learned. And the thing that really intrigued me about pool is that it was the first thing I'd ever done in my life where I didn't become like a Mizrak or a Hopkins or whatever in a couple of years.
You liked the challenge.
Absolutely. Now, there were several players or people that I credit for my success in the sport. The first one, of course, is the old man, Bob Cerrone, the house man at the pool room. And he's the one that first introduced me to, pool and playing position, gave me my first cue, took me to my first tournament, that type of thing. And then I would think that there were two people that played a pretty big part in my development as a player, a young player. One of them was Bill Hendrickson, and the other one was Tommy Halliday. And both very, very good players. Tommy, nickname was Staten Island or Doc, and Tommy hung around the old 7-Eleven in New York City, and his best friend was Jersey Red. And so, he, and like I say, he was, I was in my early 20s. He was probably in his mid to late 40s at that time. Anyway, we became very good friends, and we did a lot of running around together, going to the different pool rooms. And then Bill Hendrickson, he was one of the, there used to be 1,000,000 ball runners, straight pool. When you say 100-ball runner, you're talking about straight pool. Well, he was one of them. I mean, he was just under the champions, the Miseracks and the Hopkins and those guys. And was very capable of beating them, So those two, as far as my days in North Jersey, had a big impact on my life. And then the other two people were Buddy Hall and New York Blackie, another denizen from the 7-Eleven days in New York City. Buddy was, this was 1980 now. Buddy was probably one of the best rotation players in the country at that time. And Blackie, real name is Al Bonifay, was a great player also, but he was, he was on the downhill side. Buddy was just coming into his own. And I learned a lot from those two.
Okay. I want to ask some questions about being on the road and having to make it, to make the nut. Were you ever struggling out there? Some things you want to talk about, some of the tough times that you had to overcome?
Oh, well, in those days, there was action everywhere. I know the people today think that, we're making stuff up, but there was so much action in the pool rooms, in the bars, everywhere you went. You just walked in and you could get played. So the only struggle was like on Sundays in the South. Sundays, it was the Bible Belt in the South, and everything was closed. If you were in the South, you just had to, stay in the room and watch TV. Yeah. So that was the biggest struggle as far as action. It was everywhere. And in those days, there were very few women that played pool. I was one of only a couple that played pretty good. And most guys had never seen a woman that could play. And I played very well on the smaller tables, the bar tables, with that big cue ball. I'm sure you've heard about it. Buddy and Blackie taught me how to play with that. And that's 98% of guys don't think a girl can beat them doing anything. I mean, it's just fact.
And that's where you right there. That was the sweet spot.
Well, yeah. I mean, that, today it's the percentage might be lower, but in those days, 98, 99% of the guys didn't think a girl could beat them doing anything, and they would just go off. And the others, the other 1 or 2% would either quit or pay to watch me play because they'd never seen anybody that could run out, a girl that could run out and put racks together. So It was fun. You know, it was
You
a
were the
lot of
main
fun.
attraction. You were the main attraction.
Well, sure. You know, and the only ones that ever, if they had heard of a girl, they'd say, "Are you Jean Belucas?" And most of them didn't pronounce her name properly. But and I would say, "No, it was Jean. My name is Mary." I never had to stall. I would just come out firing. And you know, and one of the funniest stories was two of them, both took place in Alabama. One of them was in Dothan, Alabama, which is near the Panhandle of Florida. We were told to go to this place called Checkers Lounge. I think it's still there. Anyway, there were a half a dozen guys that all played around the same speed, but they all thought, each one thought they were the best of the group. So anyway, you know, I dismantled them one by one. And then, of course, they all jumped up and played Buddy or Blackie from the frying pan into the fire. Because, you know, I said, well, you could just play my steak horse thumb if you don't want to play me anymore. And
you were the
so they all
leadoff
would.
batter. You were the leadoff batter.
Yeah, and they were the cleanup.
That's great.
And anyway, and now fast forward a few years, and I'm out west. I'm in San Diego. I'd gone down to watch Keith McCready play Jay Swanee, a challenge match, $10,000 challenge match. And so everybody, you know, from all over the Southwest converged on San Diego. So after the match was over, I'm walking back to my car with my friend, and I hear Mary, and I turn around, you know, and it's dark, you know, it's like 1 a.m, and I see this girl. She's trying to run in her high heels, and she's dressed to the nines, and she said, Mary, and so I just stopped, and my friend said, "Who's that?" I said, "I have no idea." Anyway, so she finally, you know, we wait, and she finally comes over, and she's out of breath. She says, Mary, she says, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "Well, you know," and I always say the same thing, you know, and it's true. I do remember faces. You know, I'm not so good on names. Well, anyway, so I said, "Well, you know, your face looks familiar." But she says, "Dothan, Alabama." So I laughed, and she says, "You beat all the boys." She says, "We loved it." She says, "I was one of the girlfriends. She says, "We all sat there and watched you beat their asses." She says, "And then after you left, we were so inspired, we all went out and bought cue sticks and started playing pool."
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
My second story is in Tuscaloosa. Buddy and Blackie called Marshall Carpenter, the Tuscaloosa Squirrel, and asked him if there was any action there. Squirrel says, "Yeah, go to the firehouse." Fire chief plays. And he says, and he likes to back his girlfriend. Well, that was right up my alley. So we went there, and I didn't, you know, this is another thing. I did not know that every firehouse has a pool table. But anyway, so we walked in, and we asked one of the firemen, you know, where the fire chief was, and blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, so they called him, and he comes down with his girlfriend. Well, anyway, so the girlfriend and I start playing, and we were playing $5 on the 5 and $10 on the 9. And if you made them early, you just spotted them up. And so anyway, my best game was I won 6 times in one game.
Wow.
But anyway, so we beat her out of, I don't know. So the fire chief snatches the stick out of her hand after, you know, 1,000 or so, and he jumps up. And, anyway, so I barbecue his ass, and he says, "Well, I'm not playing you anymore." He says, "But I'll play your steak horse some," and he points to Buddy. So I said, "Well, no, you know, he doesn't play. He's just my steak horse," and this and that. Well, anyway, we got him to give Buddy the 8 ball.
Wow.
And all the firemen are watching?
Oh yeah, they loved it because apparently nobody liked the chief or his girlfriend.
Ooh.
Anyway,
That's a great
so
one.
those are two of my favorite stories.
Chris, what do you got?
We told Mary we wouldn't keep her that long. So we're like 10 minutes being about an hour. I mean, I know I want to do this again for sure.
Like I say, I'm retired, so I'm pretty much available most of the time.
Well, I appreciate you coming and joining us. It was a pleasure, and like I said, I'd like to set something back up again. And I'd like to sit with you in person when we come through there. I know you moved, so but guys, if y'all enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button down below and give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment and let us know how we're doing. And we will see y'all next time on the Pulling Around Show.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. And for those of you who are on Facebook and want to see my pictures, send me a friend request. And
sure,
you can see them.
Glad you did.
I'll sure share it. Well, Mary, have a good evening.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.